Hola, hola! Today we're going to finally understand the difference between the past simple and the past imperfect. Those two tenses in the past are very much confused all the time. But no worries, because today I will explain you in the most easiest way. So let's do it. I want you to understand first what is the main difference between the past simple and the past imperfect. The past simple, we're going to use it for a very specific action that happens mostly just once in the past. And the past imperfect is for an action that could happen very repeatedly in the past. So we can kind of say past simple is more specific and the past imperfect is not. Another thing that we have to think is in the context. The context in the past simple, it's probably going to have a limit of time. For example, if I'm talking about yesterday, something that happened yesterday, and I want to make a good emphasis, a focus, that the action happens yesterday, the context is very specific, right? Because we know that yesterday started at 12 and it ended at 12. From 12 to 12, the context is very specific. But then the past imperfect, it's not that specific. For example, when I say, when I was a kid, cuando era una niña, I don't really know when I was a kid start and when the context finish, right? It's not that I say, I was a kid since I was 1 to 12. No. So if the context is specific, like yesterday, the last week, this morning, you will mostly have to use the past simple. But if the context is not that specific, when I was a kid, in my past, when I was young, when I was a teenager, you will mostly have to use the past imperfect. So let's go with some examples. Ayer fui al supermercado. I'm being very specific that it happened just yesterday, right? Just ayer. So that's why I'm using the past simple. But then, what about if I say, cuando era niña, yo siempre iba al supermercado? Because the context is when I was a kid. It's not very specific. Another way that you will have to use the past simple is when it's just an action that happens once. Again, the same situation. Ayer fui al supermercado. It's just one time. I'm being very specific that it happens just once. Just ayer and just one time that I went to the supermarket. That's what I'm using the past simple. But then if I'm saying cuando era niña, yo siempre iba al supermercado, I'm using the past imperfect because it's not just once that I went. I'm saying iba. So that's probably many times that I had been going to the supermarket. Very repetitive action, right? So far we have very specific limit of time or not very specific limit of time, and an action that happens just once, and an action that could happen a lot of repetitive times. So let's try to analyze some examples. La semana pasada vi a tu hermana. La semana pasada vi a tu hermana. The last week I saw your sister. We are using the past simple because it's la semana pasada, very specific context, very specific limit of time. So that's one of the reasons that we're going to be using the past simple. And another example, cuando era joven, yo siempre veía a tu hermana. So again, the context is not very specific. When I was young, I don't know where the limit of time start, when it finish. And also that's an action that could be happening a lot of times in the past. So that's past imperfect. Let's go to another example. Esta mañana desayuné huevos. Esta mañana desayuné huevos. Very specific time. Just once. Cuando era adolescente, siempre desayunaba huevos. When I was a teenager, I was always eating for breakfast eggs. That's why it's not very specific and you will have to use the past imperfect. But what about if I'm not talking about the context? Okay, let's see some examples. Empecé a ver una nueva serie. Empecé a ver una nueva serie. I started to watch a new series. So here, the fact of me starting a new show is just once. Then maybe I will continue watching the show, but I just started once. What if I say, empezaba a ver muchos shows, pero ninguno me gustaba. I was always starting new shows, but I didn't like any of them. So if you tell me that, I will understand that you did that many times. Even if we don't have any context here, if you say that, I will understand that you did that a lot of times in the past. So that's basically the difference. The past simple is more specific and the past imperfect is not that specific. You will have to pay attention about the context of the time and if the action just happens once or if it happens very repetitively. So let me know in the comments if I was clear with my explanation and if there is any other topic that you would like me to explain. Subscribe and like my videos so you can get more Spanish tips. Ciao, ciao!